Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. Storming the Bastille. In the narrow, cobblestone alleyways of old Paris, where the scent of fresh bread mingled with the day's promise, young Lucien Aubert had known only the steady rhythm of kneading dough and the warm glow of ovens. His father, Henri, was a humble baker, known among the neighborhood for the crusty baguettes and sweet brioche that lined the wooden shelves every morning. Lucien, at 17, was tall and lean, with dark eyes that sparkled beneath a mop of unruly chestnut hair. He had spent countless dawns rubbing flour into his palms beside his father, learning the craft, dreaming of the day he would take over the bakery, just as his father had from his own father before him. But the Paris that Lucien knew was fracturing. The air was thick with unrest. Word spilled from taverns and marketplaces about the Estates General, about cries of liberty and equality shaking the city's grand salons and shadowed corners alike. Bread prices had surged beyond the reach of common folk, and hunger had become a companion to misery across the city. Lucien often overheard hushed conversations, where angry men and women spoke fervently of revolution, of casting off the weight of king and nobility. To Lucien, these ideas were distant, noble rhetoric for the salons, until one night, the first real tremors of chaos came to his doorstep. It was late July in 1789. Paris simmered under a heatwave, and the tension was as thick as the flour dust that danced in the bakery's morning light. Henri was closing up for the night, wiping the counters, when Lucien spotted a ragged man stumbling toward the shop, eyes wild and desperate. "Please sir," the man gasped, clutching the hem of Lucien's shirt, "bread? My children, starving." Henri immediately tore off a warm loaf, handing it to the man who clutched it like a treasure before disappearing into the night shadows. That moment stayed with Lucien. Hunger was no longer an abstract word. It was a gnawing beast tormenting the city's people. He began listening more closely to the murmurs swelling in Paris's crowded streets. Then came the news that set his heart ablaze: the storming of the Bastille. The Bastille was the ancient fortress prison in the heart of Paris, a grim symbol of royal tyranny. Its looming walls had long cast a shadow over the citizens, promising imprisonment without cause for those who dared question the throne. For months, tensions had escalated, food shortages, heavy taxation, and political oppression spurred the people to desperation. The rumors said that the royal guards were hoarding weapons within the fortress. The city was ripe for an explosion. Lucien's decision was instant, though it astonished his father and shocked the town. He would join the crowds gathering in the streets to demand change. "What good is baking bread," Lucien argued one morning, "if no one can eat it? We must fight for our right to live, to breathe." Henri's eyes, clouded with worry, met his son's. "You're our family's future, Lucien. Not a soldier fighting in the streets." But Lucien's mind was made. That cloudy morning, wrapped in his father's worn cloak, Lucien slipped out of the bakery and into the swelling throng near Place de la Bastille. At first, the crowd was a thrumming river of voices raised in fury and hope. Men and women of all stations, united by a singular resolve, surged against the fortress walls. Some carried improvised weapons, wooden clubs, farming tools, even blunt kitchen knives, gathered hastily in revolt. Lucien's heart pounded not from fear but from exhilaration. Despite the mild summer sun, he felt a chill that was less from the weather and more from the enormity of what was unfolding. As the mob chanted for liberty, for justice, the royal soldiers atop the Bastille's ramparts tightened their grips on muskets, firing warning shots to scare the crowd. But the people had come prepared to die for their cause. The skirmish erupted suddenly. The crowd surged forward, stones and bricks rained down on the fortress. Lucien ducked behind a cart loaded with crates, clutching a broken length of wood as a makeshift club. In the flare of gunfire and shouts, he saw a young woman fall nearby, clutching her bleeding arm. Without hesitation, Lucian pulled her away from the danger, pressing his jacket to her wound. Her eyes met his, terrified yet resolute. "We cannot stop," she whispered. "This is our moment." Through hours that stretched like an eternity, the rebel energy battered the Bastille's defenses. The governor of the fortress, realizing the hopelessness of his position, finally allowed the gates to be opened. The prisoners were freed, but more significantly, the fortress itself, the emblem of royal oppression, was claimed by the people. When the cheers echoed across Paris, Lucian found himself breathless and covered in dust and blood, much of it not his own. He looked up at the tattered French tricolor flag raised above the Bastille's gates and felt a surge of hope. This was more than just a day of chaos. It was the dawn of a new era. The days that followed were a whirlwind. News traveled fast, and the king was forced to acknowledge the people's demands. Paris itself transformed into a boiling pot of fervent debate, political pamphlets, and impassioned speeches. Lucian returned to the bakery but found his old rhythms broken. He was no longer just the baker's boy but a witness and participant in history. Though Henri fretted for his son's safety, he also could not deny the change stirring within his son and the city. Lucian began volunteering with groups distributing bread to those who had nothing, echoing the ideals born at the Bastille. He learned to wield a musket and to read the growing patriotic texts flooding the city. Through the seasons, Paris was a city of extremes, the guillotine casting long, oppressive shadows, as calls for fraternity mingled with brutal purges. Lucian navigated these challenges with a growing resolve shaped by his simple truth: that no matter where a man came from, no matter how humble his origins, he deserved justice, dignity, and hope. Late in the summer of 1790, Lucian stood beneath a newly erected tree in the Champ de Mars. The scene was magical yet solemn. A large crowd had gathered to celebrate the Festival of the Federation, a ceremony meant to unify the nation under the tricolor flag and the banner of liberty. Lucian's eyes met the faces of peasants, merchants, soldiers, and citizens weaving a collective dream of change. He thought back on the night the Bastille fell and the baker's shop where this all began. In that moment, Lucian realized that the revolution was not merely about barricades or symbols but about the people, their courage, their sacrifices, and their unwavering belief that a better life awaited beyond the shadows of monarchy and oppression. Years later, as the revolution continued to unfold with its triumphs and tragedies, Lucian never forgot the smell of warm bread or the vibration of a city shaking free of its chains. The bakery remained his home, but his heart belonged to the Paris he fought for, the Paris reborn from ashes, fire, and hope. For more stories, like and subscribe.